Thus, Argento's Animal Trilogy is complete. Four Flies on Grey Velvet. This came out the same year as Cat o' Nine Tails. That's right, 1971. So he's successfully directed and put out 3 movies in 2 years. Impressive. The plot. A man and his bandmates have been watched by an unknown person, and eventually the drummer goes to go check out who it is after everyone's already left, so he's the only one with the figure. He goes up to him, tries to interrogate him, then the interrogated pulls out a knife, and one thing leads to another and he gets stabbed. The drummer is then hit with a spotlight, and a photograph is taken. Now he's possibly going to be a suspect, or just the plain old criminal and murder, even though it was a complete accident, and someone is still out to get him. The first 2 Dario Argento films had characters that were, for all intensive purposes, integral to the case. They were going along with the police. It is neat to see that role changed. There are no official police in this movie that are assisting him. No police, no protection. You can see that Argento is trying new things with this movie. There's a strong-ish sense of comedy. There's a character that tells colorful short stories of a Frankenstein raping woman. And there's also one scene I got a chuckle out of. One of the characters goes up to a man. The other character has a cigarette in his mouth, and he's like, "Hey, can I borrow it for a light?" And so he gives him his cigarette, then he swaps it, and he gives him the one that's not lit. It's like, what? Clever boy. One of the comedy segments in this movie involves a mailman, and unfortunately it's a bit cringeworthy, for it doesn't seem to fit with the rest of the film. It's traits like these that give light to a dark situation, and add something different in terms of style for Argento's film. My favorite character has to be the gay inspector, because he has ambition. He has never solved a case. He's tried, but never has succeeded. But he feels he can break the curse if he takes on this case. So, thankfully they allow him to. I would have been like, get the hell out of here, dude. You haven't solved one case. Why are you even here? How are you on the job? What's funny is it was the actor's choice to portray that character as being gay. Let's stop for a minute. Dario Argento's first 3 movies have gay characters. It's interesting. A lot of people called him a homophobic. I don't think that's the case. I think he was trying to give these characters something. A lot of movies back then, if there was a gay character, they would be like a joke. But these characters have purpose. On the other hand, Roberto, the main character, he's a bit useless. I mean, his character kind of does make up for it by being a symbol of the era, the bum, the hippie, but it doesn't really solidify or justify his character. There was one scene that got me. It startled me pretty good. It was tense, and the payoff was artistically shot and shocking. The pacing is as taut as Cat o' Nine Tails, and quicker than the bird with the crystal plumage. However, the good pacing is during the second half of the movie. The first half is a little slow. So it's like you got Bird with the crystal plumage, and then you got Cat o' Nine Tails. I did sort of guess who the killer was. I had one suspicion, and then it turned out to be not true. And then I was like, okay, I think it's this person, and I was right. Same thing happened with Cat o' Nine Tails. The only one that got me was the bird with the crystal plumage. I was like, what the fuck? And speaking of the killer, he does do some things that are shocking in terms of violence. The gore, the effects, there's some blood splatter, some slicing and dicing and bashing. It's nothing too graphic. The scene I was referring to was a bedazzling shot of a character who is driving and they get hit by a truck. The scene is shot in slow motion, way ahead of its time. And it looks interesting. It's not terribly cheesy, and it's effective, which is what matters. It's rather beautiful. The blood is probably still paint here, but they do give it some texture. It's more darkly colored than the rest of the earlier Argento films, the two other ones. The motion picture soundtrack, there's a rock group in the plot of this movie. You better believe it, they have a couple songs. Ennio Morricone returns. He's back with a darker and more childlike score. The presence is rather all over the place. I mean, it's not as good or as symbolic as the bird with the crystal plumage. I mean, it can be if you think about it. I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the characters is had a rough time growing up, and that could attune to this childlike nature of the score. It seems to meld the bird with the crystal plumage and Cat O' Nine Tails in a beautiful score. Does it fit the context of the movie? Kind of, not terribly. So I like this one more and less than Cat O' Nine Tails. It has more errors than his previous films. And a major plot hole I noticed was that the guy who was supposedly killed in the opening scene by our main character, spoilers, he's not actually dead. He faked his death. And I don't get that. I don't believe it. Because we saw a newspaper of an unidentified man found in that very place, dead. Now, what I think is that it's either a plot hole or the killer traded out a body with his. Regardless, that plot line goes nowhere and really serves no purpose. The film is a bit disjointed and a bit of a mess as well, but I enjoyed it regardless. Overall, I give 4 Flies on Grey Velvet a 2.5 out of 5. Thank you all for watching, and I am Brian Gatto, host of Horror Show Entertainment. Make sure to like my Twitter and Facebook fan pages in the description below, leave comments, and subscribe.